Derek Olson of the Small Group Network here at the Lobby 2018 gathering in sunny Southern California, and I'm honored to be hanging out with Chris Surratt. Chris, thanks for your time.
It's great to be here.
And Chris, for those watching, you are the small group specialist with Lifeway in Nashville. You're also the author of Small Groups for the Rest of Us, and so just honored to have you on camera here real quick. And I wanted to ask you about several questions that relate to small groups. Sound good?
Sounds great.
So when it comes to systems and processes to track placement and all that fun stuff, group evaluation, what do you recommend?
I recommend having a system, first of all. I think, when it comes to small group ministry and discipleship, we think organic and it's just kind of going to happen, but you need a system and you need systems in place to help people know what they should be doing and what they should be doing next. And so that's always my first advice, is if you're not keeping track of your numbers, if you don't know where people are, if you don't know where they are spiritually and how to get them to the next step, you need systems. And so every group ministry needs systems, and it's going to depend on the scope and the scale of the group ministry, but at the very least have some sort of a data management system where you know how many groups that you have. Because if you don't know that, you don't know how many you're going to need to handle the growth of your church. You're going to need to know how many people are actually attending those groups. So whether that's through taking weekly attendance, which I've never had a lot of luck with, or just taking snapshots once or twice a semester, figure out who are actually attending groups. So know your percentage of people that are in groups. Know how many leaders you're developing, so how many are kind of apprentices or secondary or whatever that is, but have some type of system and database so you can track those numbers, know where you are, and then the big thing is celebrate those wins. So as you kind of reach those goals of how many people we want in groups or how many groups we want to start, you want to celebrate that, tell your church, tell your leaders, and the only way you're going to do that is if you have a good system in place to keep track of it.
So good. When it comes to serving and casting vision to your pastor or your senior leadership, what advice would you offer to small group point people?
I would say create time to spend with your senior pastor. I talk to so many point people that don't have time, that they actually sit down with their senior pastor and kind of get where his heart is, where he's going, and what happens is the pastor can go this way and we can go that way, and that's not good. It's not good for the church, because as small group point people and discipleship point people, we're in charge of the spiritual growth. The pastor is obviously the visionary, but we want the people to be growing spiritually where he's leading, where the vision is for the church. And so having that time, whether it's weekly, which if you can get weekly, that's amazing, but at least once a month or once every couple of months, sit down with your pastor, say, where's your heart? Where do you see the church going in the fall? Or where do you see the church going in the spring? And then develop resources and all of that follows along with that pastor, whether it's a campaign or message-based studies. But you can't go your own way. You got to go alongside the senior leader.
Very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. Lastly, when it comes to the famous topic in small group world of coaching, coaching small group leaders or hosts, what practical advice can you give?
Coaching is hard. Coaching is really, really hard. My first advice would be don't give up. That if you're trying to develop coaches, it's going to be a long road. It's for the long term. And so you're going to have coaches that are going to work and coaches that are not going to work. And you're going to have leaders that don't want to have anything to do with coaches. And it's easy just to say coaching doesn't work. But trust me, your leaders need soul care. And I don't know a better way to do that. And maybe you don't call it coaches. Some people don't like that term because it sounds like you're telling somebody what to do. Whatever you call it, whether it's soul care or whatever, they need somebody to walk alongside them. So I would say first focus on those new leaders, those brand new leaders, because they're going to need their hands held the most. And they're going to be more receptive to a coach, somebody walking alongside. So I always require that new leaders have one for at least a year to walk alongside. veteran small group leaders, give them the option. You know, we've got it if you want it. There's somebody here that wants to care for you, so that's always important. And then a big piece for me is that it's a relational handoff, so that you're not just sending an email to a leader and saying, here's this guy Derek, you've never met him, here's his email, he's going to be checking in on you. Nobody likes that. So it's more of sitting down one-on-one, bring the coach in on it. Maybe it's that interview or that training process, and say, you know what, Derek's sitting here, he's going to be walking alongside you. So I think that relational handoff is key to making it work in the long term.
Very good. Is there any books you've been reading recently or are reading that you'd recommend when it comes to leadership or small groups?
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. A great one that I actually read and it's not out yet is Steve Gladen's new book. I got to do an endorsement for that, and Planning Small Groups with Purpose. Definitely pick that up when it's out this summer. You know, there's a lot of great books that have been around for a while that are absolutely game changers for me. Heather Zimpel's Community is Messy. If you've never read that, you need to pick that up because community is messy. But yeah, there's a lot of also secular leadership books that you really should be reading, kind of get perspective on leadership, like the 4 Disciplines of Execution. That changed my world on how to set goals for my small group ministry. Even though it's written from a business standpoint, I think a lot of times we skip that we need goals and we need processes to get to those goals. So anything like that is also helpful.
And tell us a little bit about the book you wrote, Small Groups for the Rest of Us.
Yeah, I wrote that a couple of years ago, and kind of the impetus behind it was I'm more of an introvert by nature, and I felt like a lot of our small group systems, and the small group system that I was building was for extroverts. And so I thought, you know what, we need different methods and systems to reach people who are not like us. And so it kind of started there. But it broadened beyond that. You know, how do we reach men with groups? Because it's easy a lot of times to reach women, but we can't get men in groups. How do we reach people that aren't even attending our church? Can small groups be the front door for the church? So what does that look like? Inviting neighbors to your house before you invite them to church. So, and then some of the ideas that I've used along the way just to get people into groups, and a lot of things that haven't worked, you know, so I can be an example for how not to do it, but also a few things that work. So yes, check that out, Small Groups for the Rest of Us.
And also, lastly, tell us a little bit about smallgroup.com.
Smallgroup.com is an amazing resource. It's an online database of Bible studies that you can customize. It's got video enhanced studies as well from people like Beth Moore, Priscilla Shire, Tony Evans, David Platt, just some amazing teachers. There's like over 2,500 studies now. I use it personally in my small group. I just pull up a video study and I can use it in my group, or I also use it to write message studies for my church. So you're not starting with a blank page. You just put in a scripture or a topic, it pulls up a study, you customize it, boom, you've got a message-based study. So it's a great tool.
Awesome. So for those of you watching, check out smallgroup.com. Check out Chris's book, Small Groups for the Rest of Us. And you're on Twitter, right, Chris?
On Twitter, at Chris Surratt, CHRIS SURRATT. Also on Facebook, so same thing. Yeah, I love social media.
Yeah, so follow him for lots of encouragement, resources. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.